to the Hurricanes in Game 2. I'm Marinofsky here with Conor Ryan for another post-game show, two straight, two in a row. Maybe the Bruins aren't doing so hot, but these post-game shows are doing pretty hot. But that is obviously, there's a lot to talk about after Game 2 from this one. And I think where we kind of want to start is one thing that, seems to be a recurring theme of every postseason is the terrible officiating, right? But this was terrible officiating mixed with just bad discipline by the Bruins at times. I mean, you saw, Trent Frederick with that kind of just the random interference penalty. You look at Brad Marchand, with the slash on Kochetkov, and you just look at those little plays. And obviously, there was some terrible officiating mixed in, 100%. But there was also those bad discipline plays, and that's getting called. And again, like we'll get to later in the game, later on in this show, but that kind of just screwed him early.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of those things where you can look at officiating and hop on it, but I look at it as kind of like that game 5 against the Blues. Like that's one where you leave the game being like, all right, that decided a game, a close game with where the
Yes.
stakes are in the series. As you said, you look at situation where Marchand gets the penalty for slash and going right back at the goalie, which I know emotions are high. You can't do that. The Frederick penalty,
He even
which
kind of like chopped his stick, stopped, looked at the ref,
yes,
and then just did it.
yes, like there's stuff like that. There's the Frederick penalty, as you said. There's other things like that that you just can't have in a game where it's especially a situation where things can get away from you very quickly. And again, this is a Carolina team that can bury you in a hurry, right? Like it's one of those ones you just can't have. The margin for error is already so slim in this game, and you can't make it easy for a team like Carolina. I mean, what was it, 5-on-3 opportunities for Carolina in a game like this? It can't happen. And again, yeah, sure, there's times where you're looking at, Svechnikov drops Lindholm, he drops McAvoy for a while there. Bruins end up being shorthanded on both those sequences. Like, yeah,
One for
it's
5-on-3. One of those was a
yes,
5-on-3.
yes. Like I get it. It's very frustrating, but you look at what orchestrated this whole situation you're in right now, where you're down 0-2. It's not the refs. I mean, look at just the fact that Bergeron scores that goal, that power play goal. You have a little bit more momentum on your side, and then what does it end? Like 3 penalties, the Marchand penalty, and then Niederreiter scores that power play goal, and they're back in the driver's seat. Like you just can't make things easy for a team like Carolina.
And the refs are calling that. That's the other part is that's going to be the case. And you mentioned it's funny. Svechnikov was a pest out there. I thought the hit on Lindholm for the most part was clean. I mean, again, that's a green light just coming around the net, huge hit on that play. I think the Bruins did the right thing. You retaliate. You don't just kind of keep playing after a hit like that. You do have to retaliate. Would have been maybe nice to see some gloves drop, but it's 3-on-1. You can't just start wailing on the guy. But on top of that, you see the play with Svechnikov and McAvoy in center ice where they go knee on knee. And it's tough to tell, right? I mean, in the middle of the game, it's hard to see if one guy sees the other. Svechnikov was kind of looking forward. But even that, like I still look at Svechnikov as kind of public enemy number one heading into game 3. Has to be. But you have to think, you are absolutely going to target him, and I don't mean injure him. I mean just like you are going to finish every check on him. You are going to do everything possible to make his life miserable in Game 3. I think that's what you need out of the Bruins, and I think this is something we'll get to maybe later in the show or maybe in Poke the Bear, where like what lineup changes need to be made. But aside from the bad discipline and the bad refs, I think the most frustrating part of the first 40 minutes, even 50 minutes, was the lack of offense. You got a third string goalie in there, man. You ain't shooting anything. And you look at
Yeah.
that and you think, like, what is that? And granted, the Hurricanes are great defensively, they're great structure wise, but they had nothing going offensively.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most frustrating part of this game is it pretty much followed a similar script as to game 1, if not even worse when you look at just where the Bruins are at the end
Way
of it, right?
worse.
Where, I mean, it's the same thing. They start off the first period. I think shots on goal were in favor of Boston 8-2. And then Carolina just gets right back into it, takes a 2-0 lead. Nothing flashy. The first goal for them, it's off of just Boston being unable to clear the puck out. Jesper Foss capitalized there. Then Aho's first goal, it's what we've seen countless times with Carolina, right? Like low to high play, shot from up high, gets deflected by a bunch of bodies down low against Olmark there, which again, what are you going to do in that situation, right? It's Carolina. As much as people talk about their speed and how aggressive they are on the penalty kill, all these things, a lot of their offense is generated from playing simple, smart hockey down low, like crowding the net, and the deflections and tips are going to be there. So it's you're in the similar situation as you were in game one, where it starts off strong and doesn't lead to pretty much anything except a 2-0 deficit for you going into it. And then we talk about later on about, Lindholm and all those things, but it just got worse and worse for the Bruins. And when you look at, obviously there were some momentum shifts like the Bergeron goal, and then, you take the penalties there, and maybe that's where it kind of sealed the deal. I think the game was pretty much decided when, Ranta goes out. You have, a rookie goalie in who has played, 149 minutes of total ice time up in the NHL ranks.
Three
Yeah,
games.
3 games, not even 3 sets, 3 just appearances, and you get 4 shots on goal and almost 13 minutes of ice time. Like that's a backbreaker there. You needed to capitalize on that situation. And now going forward, who knows what the situation is? People make the argument that it doesn't matter who's in net for Carolina. If Carolina plays like this, they're gonna win in 4 or 5 games. But if you wanted to look at a way to climb back into the series, well, it's going to get a lot tougher now because who knows when Freddie Anderson's good to go as well. So to go down 2-0 in this series is already a tough pill to swallow. But when you look at the opportunities that were there for the Bruins in terms of who Carolina had in net, it makes it even worse.
And I mean, you look at that first goal, and one thing that was the worst part of that was Pastrnak just avoids that hit coming down the wall and then doesn't grab his guy up top. I thought he had a really bad night.
Yeah.
I think he has looked off, and something's, whether it be his core or something is off because I don't know if you noticed, but in that third period, the amount of times he just grabbed the puck and shot it at the net in the offensive zone without any like trying to set anything up was just ridiculous. And that's usually when you can tell his game's starting to kind of falter, is when he just starts throwing everything at the net from at all times, not trying to set plays up. And you saw that tonight, and he looks off. He looks off, and it hurt. And again, Cassidy made the move in the second period to bring Pastrnak up. I think that paid dividends late because they got, sustained ozone time. And again, it was too little too late, right? Like the offense that you wanted to see for 50 minutes came into play in the last 10. And by that point, it was pretty much over. Obviously, you have the power play, you have the 6-on-4, and then you go to 6-on-5. You almost kind of convert on two of those chances. But even then, so again, it just comes down to it's just too little too late at the end there. You needed to see that urgency throughout the game. Maybe it comes in with the home crowd in game three. But even then, you look at the structure the Hurricanes play with, the discipline at times, and the way in which they just sort of play, and it's tough. Like it's a really tough thing to get to keep that urgency going for 60 minutes against them. But they absolutely have to. Speaking of something that's not going to help the urgency, Hampus Lindholm gets absolutely cracked behind the net. And we mentioned this earlier, whether it was clean or not. I think it was clean. I think you said you thought it was pretty fairly clean.
Yeah.
I know Jack was saying he kind of left his feet. It's hard to tell, heat of the moment type thing. I think what comes back at him is game three when Svechnikov has to play a full 60 against a rested Bruins team. But the worst part of this is Hampus Lindholm obviously was out for the rest of game two. I have a hard time believing he's even going to be back for game three, and it's hard to speculate on, but it doesn't feel like that's an injury he's coming back from anytime soon.
Yeah, Bruce Cassidy, as most NHL coaches, is you don't like to divulge a lot of information in the immediate aftermath of a game where a guy leaves early, where it's, they're testing or see how they feel in the morning. Cassidy already said that he's not doing well, which does not bode
That's
very
not
well
good.
for, it's not good at all. And I think when we talked about previewing this series on our podcast, I think Lindholm was a guy that we both talked about was going to be key for the Bruins. I mean, this is a guy that you traded for at the deadline. This is a guy that you expect was going to help inject some offense, or just even having another capable top four guy on your decor. And to lose him, not just his presence and what it means now for the domino effect of the depth chart of, probably Mike Riley going into the lineup, who has been pretty shaky, especially against a team like Carolina that pressures. But you also miss Lindholm in terms of his potential ability, at least. You haven't really seen it yet, but, whether it's, getting shots from the point, which you haven't seen, but he can bring that element. His transition game was going to be essential in terms of, avoiding this Carolina forecheck. Losing a guy like him for any stretch of time this series was going to be catastrophic. And now when you're down in an 0-2 hole, it just magnifies it. It's a brutal development for this team. And it's one thing to leave game one very frustrated, but you leave game two once again knocked down, but without a key cog on your defense, it's tough.
And you're kind of back to where you were last year against the
Yeah.
Islanders. Not fully because you have Forbert, but you're that's a brutal blow to your top four. I mean, now your top four again goes back to, is it Forbert, McAvoy, Grizzly, Carlo? Is it Riley McAvoy? Like that's a, I don't want to say it's shaky, but that's not anywhere
Not
near what
great,
you
Evan.
had with Lindholm. It's not great, not great, not great at all. And you just look at, and again, that's just such a tough blow. Like that's, I think, again, if the Bruins lose this series, we'll talk about the ramifications later on. Fire Sweeney, fire Cassidy, whatever it might be. You can't put an injury like that, I think, on a guy like Sweeney or Cassidy. You can't put that injury on anybody. That just happened. And I think that's something we'll discuss kind of at length later on. That's a huge blow. That's massive. And I think it kind of hints things do not look great going into games 3 and 4. And as our good friend Ty Anderson tweeted out, the last time the Bruins were down 2-0 in a series was game 7 of the 2011 Cup final, which is wild that was the last time that they were down 2-0 in a series. I want to ask you, is there hope? Can the Bruins come back from this?
Yeah, I mean, of course they can. Of course, it's the cliche. It's not a real series until a home team loses on home ice. But still, you look at just kind of the task in front of them. Ain't gonna be easy, Evan.
No.
It's even just like the little things that Carolina does so well, and you could talk all you want about the Bruins and their lack of generating quality chances, but also Carolina is doing a good job of even if there's like a loose puck or a rebound, you got guys like Slavin who are pros at just like either mucking up the puck and tying it up or clearing it away. Like this Carolina team is legit, and they've got
Oh
multiple
my
guys
God.
all buying into especially like a 5-man unit. And that's why they're so tough to get inside against. But whether it's just having a puck go your way, some puck luck on the power play, what have you. Like, of course, there's always hope, but it's going to be a tough task, especially when it's one thing if they lost this game, and we can talk about the refs, or we could talk about just the missed opportunities and not capitalizing against a rookie goalie. But when you lose a guy like Lindholm, that's when you just kind of look at the personnel and be like, you need all the help you can get. You need your top guys playing at a high level, which at least you got from Bergeron a little bit as the game went on. But to then have that kind of vacancy in the top four, it's going to be pretty glaring for however long this series goes on for.
And again, you look at even past Lindholm, right? McAvoy gets clipped in the leg. You hope he's fine with that. I mean, he looked like he was fine the last 5 minutes, but you never know ramifications wise. Marchand was sort of undisciplined throughout, that second period, and Pastrnak looked bad. And it's like this is the worst case scenario in a sense. But again, they haven't played at the Garden yet. I think it's an important development. People kind of forget. Obviously everybody lives in the moment so much, Connor. But they kind of forget, like, hey, they haven't played at home yet. There's still the fact that they've yet to play at the Garden. Now, obviously, if you're looking back at the regular season, Bruins and Hurricanes on Garden ice was not too great. So, again, but we've thrown the regular season stats out. Now, lastly, I do want to hit on this, the goaltending. I put out the hot take that they would go to Swayman in game 3 on Bruins beat. I said that because I think, again, with the way the rest goes, wouldn't surprise me in this situation if they went to Swayman. And by the
Yeah,
way, Omar's not been bad. Like
yeah.
Omar's been fine. He made some big saves tonight. He's made some big saves in game 1. I mean, some of the goals that went in tonight were just, again, shorthand. You're super shorthanded. One of them was a 5-on-3. Do they go to Swayman?
I wouldn't be surprised. And again, yeah, I don't think when let's say the series ends in 4 or 5 games, which would be obviously very disappointing. I don't think you're pointing at Olmark as the architect of a very disappointing first round exit for the Bruins. But I think when
The
you look at,
architect.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
he's drawing it up.
That's how people probably think Rask was back in the heyday now. So it's quite the
Yeah.
departure these days. But I think when you look at in terms of going into this game 3, and it's especially where you're going to be shorthanded with a guy like Lindholm out, your back's against the wall, need a spark some way. Whether it's starting another goalie, and maybe it's kind of like what the Carolina Hurricanes have had with Kochetkov, where his numbers haven't been stellar, but you're looking at their kind of collective buy-in in terms of elevating their game for a young goalie. Maybe that gives them a spark. Maybe it's you putting in a guy like Bleed or Wagner, who knows, like you got to do something, right? You're obviously going to be in a building that's going to be pretty excited, pretty hyped up for it. So you need something that at least gives you some semblance of a spark. And at this point, what do you have to lose? You're down 0-2. It has not been good. You can maybe build
No.
off how they played over that little stretch there. So, and who knows if Swayman's not up to the task, then you're down 0-3 and you're already in deep trouble, right? But who knows? A young rookie goalie, maybe he hits into another gear and gets hot. It's always tough.
Yeah, no, and the other thing is, a YouTube commenter said Bruins need to be more physical. Wouldn't surprise me to see like Josh Brown in the lineup either. I know he's not the most reliable defenseman, but just go out there and wreak havoc and hit guys and kind of do that thing. Again, I don't know where you slot him in. Clifton's been fine. I don't know if there's a reason to move him out. I don't think you want to put I don't think you want to put Josh Brown in solely because or I don't think you want like two righties. I don't think you want Josh Brown with another righty, but I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. You're down 2-0. As you said, like there's not you can kind of get creative here. You're not like your backs are against the wall. You might as well try stuff. As you said, Anton Bleed would kind of maybe fit well in this series, kind of just being a pest. So we'll see what happens. Long series left. I think people, I know it's a tough time right now. I still think it's Hurricanes in 7. I know everybody disagrees with that. It's starting to look a little more likely that might be the case. I know you had Bruins in 6. That's still possible, people. That still could happen. So you never know. You never know. I'm just saying. Don't fully count them out yet. They're going back home. They're going to Boston. Hopefully the refs, as I tweeted, Bruins need to reset before Game 3. So do the refs. Full reset. Full reset. But anyways, Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston Sports Journal?
Yeah, Evan, we'll break down this very unfortunate game over at BSJ later tonight. And again, throughout this playoffs, for however long it goes, we're going to have daily coverage with previews, video breakdowns, columns. Hopefully, if we still have time, some features we're still working on, which would be great. It'd be really unfortunate if
You
we
got a
lose
tight
in 4 or 5
deadline coming.
games. Exactly. So, but regardless, there'll be stuff at the BSJ site every single day. So please subscribe at bostonsportschannel.com. Want to follow me on Twitter? You can do that at ConorRyan_93.
Go do all that. Make sure to follow both of us through the rest of the postseason for Bruins Coverage.